Good evening, everyone. Move to return to open session.
Second.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This isn't coming up.
Move to adopt the agenda?
Second.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Tonight we are continuing the zoning hearing, Case 3-2018 Anderson Harmony Senior Living, 2601 and through 6301 Clough Pike. Paul?
Thank you. We'll get the PowerPoint started. Thank you. As Mr. Girth stated, this is a continuation from last month at the January 17th Trustees meeting. The Board of Trustees heard Case 3-2018 Anderson. The applicant is Cincinnati Ale Investors, LLC, on behalf of Kinder 8, LLC, and SWGR Clough, LLC, who are the property owners. And the location is at 6201 and 6301 Clough Pike. The request was a change from A, single-family residence, to DD, planned multifamily, for the purpose of constructing two buildings that would be connected by a breezeway, approximately 119,000 square feet for Harmony Senior Living Facility. This would consist of 90 assisted living units and 32 memory care units, as well as associated parking, landscaping, etc. The trustees held the public hearing last month, closed the case with the request by the applicant to provide a traffic impact study, and for that traffic impact study to be reviewed by the Hamilton County Engineers Office, which they did. We received word from the Hamilton County Engineers Office last Friday that they had reviewed and approved the traffic impact study. Basically, the traffic impact study said that this proposed use would have minimal impact on the existing conditions of Clough Pike, and it did not recommend any improvements to Clough Pike. That was the result. And then let me just put this on. There we go. So the traffic impact study was in your packet if you have questions on that. The applicant, even though that has come back that no improvements are needed, the applicant has submitted a letter or via email yesterday, actually this morning, that they are willing to put in a right turn lane into the westernmost access. So that would be this access here. This is Clough Pike. The township property is here. This is open space, and this is the Woods at Turpin apartment property. So the applicant has agreed to a right turn lane in this particular area, pending there is right-of-way or pending that the township is willing to dedicate an easement toward that right turn lane if it couldn't fit in the right-of-way. So the applicant is willing to do that. Beyond that, I have no further update unless you have specific questions about the traffic impact study or other lingering questions from last month that you may have.
Is that westernmost entrance, is that considered the main entrance or what would be considered the main?
And there may be a question for the applicant, but the layout, these are the memory care units, and then these are the assisted living. Assisted living. So the majority of the traffic, the employees, and would be coming in this main drive here, and the majority of the parking lot is toward the rear. So yes, I think this would be considered a main entrance.
Okay, so just to clarify, so Hamilton County Engineer reviewed it, approved it, and said really no road improvements necessary, but you guys are willing to do a right turn lane. Okay. We've seen the numbers for the traffic. I mean, the estimated numbers of trips and stuff out of there, out of this development. And I think, remind me again, you know, the peak, wasn't it, Paul, do you recall?
So the
The
peak
highest-
morning is 23, the peak PM is 32
So
trips.
Just in comparison, I don't know if we have this, so just by comparison, like Reserve of Turpin, for instance, which is down the street, do we have any idea, from a traffic count standpoint, what cars come out of there on any daily basis?
We
I mean,
could
if you
put,
don't,
we
that's
could
fine.
place
I'm
a
just-
counter. We could place a counter on Copperleaf there. I think there's a 300, roughly 300, 325 housing units back in that development. If you assume, you know, half of those went out, we could easily count that, but I think the estimation on our numbers was around 1,400, if memory serves me right, was our estimated count.
All right, and they have two ingress and egress, so
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get a
Turpin Hills is
comparison.
another one. There's, you know,
Right.
you've got almost 500 units in Turpin Hills. You estimate half go to each driveway, and out of there, you're probably at 2,000 to 2,500. So together, those two developments comprise probably a large majority of the 9,000 cars a day that you see traversing this area.
All right. Andrew, do you guys have any questions on the
I'd
traffic?
just like to ask the applicant, if I might, at your other facilities, on any given day, EMS runs that are to a facility such as this, what do you forecast? I just have, that's my curiosity. That's the only thing that I didn't see, and it wasn't in there, so I wasn't asked. I just want to ask it now.
Sure. With this size community, you could expect an EMS run approximately once every 2 to 3 days, approximately.
That's normal? I mean,
That's
for
normal.
What your experience is in running these things?
Yes, that is.
So it's not an everyday occurrence?
No, it's not an everyday occurrence. No, sir.
But let's stick with that for a minute, because let's just say it is every day. Chief Martin, your report, or, I mean, your assessment of what, if any, capacity issues we would have on those runs?
I was contacted about this by somebody from the public, so we did the numbers on it. Right now, Station 101, which is where that's located, is our slowest station. They run about 917 runs. That's what they ran last year. That's 2.51 runs a day. And we did a study based on square footage using the other 5 similar facilities in the township. We got an average, and based on the 120,000 square feet, we anticipated 0.71 runs a day. So that's kind of in line with what the applicant said. That's 1 run every 1.41 days. So that would take that station's runs to 3.22 runs a day, and it would just barely be the 3rd busiest station. There would be one more station that's slower, that's at 22s, but even with those projected runs, it would still be the 3rd busiest station. By comparison, Beachmont runs 6.79 runs a day.
Wow.
So and that's our busiest station.
Thanks, Chief. Any other questions, guys, about traffic, specifically traffic?
No, it's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, I hope everyone had a chance to read it. It's been on our website, is that correct? The study?
I believe it went on our website Tuesday.
I just want to make sure everyone had a chance to read it, but yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory, and it is what it is. I believe the rating was, overall rating was A as far as, you know, the level of service, so.
That might be good to explain. That
Yeah, what does
is
A
our-
mean? Yeah.
Just so people understand, and Steve, Vicki, Paul, any of you guys, feel free to chime in on what A means.
Steve, did you want?
The applicant would like to address that. I'll try to pull up the study, just, you've got the table in there.
Or on the scale, I guess, of what the ratings would be, however you want to describe it.
So the rating system works in such that depending on how many trips you have and how long the wait time is. So The road really didn't change from its A status. The only time we moved to a B or C status, which is a slightly longer wait time, is to pull out, which would be like any other driveway coming out onto Clough. In essence, the time you're going to have a B or a C is when you have your staff coming and going. But beyond that, it's basically all under the category of A, which means you have little or no waiting time. Yeah, so you'll see there, it establishes the period of time that it takes. A is effectively a short 10-second or less, little or no delay, and then it just increases by severity. We don't have anything beyond a C, and that is just for the...
That's just for leaving the
Leaving.
facility.
Right, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Anything else on traffic? Okay. I do think, Paul, if you don't mind coming back up, I think even though we addressed several issues at the last meeting, I think it'd be a good idea to kind of recap some of that, just for the record. And probably ought to start, Paul, with the zoning itself.
Sure.
If you could just go back and explain again why it's zoned the way it is. I know Hamilton County denied it, but they obviously did not have the entire story. So can you just refresh everyone's memory on what's going on?
So the current zoning is A, which is single-family lots just shy of a half acre, 20,000 square foot lots is what is permitted. That's the current zoning of the property. And the property on both sides of the street in the immediate area, except adjacent to this property, which is also is zoned DD, planned multifamily. That's the Woods of Turpin Apartments. So that's the adjacent zoning. Our comprehensive plan has a future land use map. In the plan, the future land use map had still identified this property for single family, and that's in the staff report. It had identified it as just yellow as single family residence. The future land use map is one component of the comprehensive plan. There are multiple components in the comprehensive plan, and when this property originally became available for sale, at least one of the property owners contacted the township and to see, what the comprehensive plan had identified the property for, or what may be better uses for that property. And so we had recently done the comprehensive plan was adopted in 2016, and this was last summer, well before last summer, when the property became available. The market study was very fresh. One of the uses that was lacking in the township were senior living options, whether it's assisted living, skilled nursing, memory care, independent living, the whole gamut of senior housing. There was a market need in the township. So we looked at areas, with the help of the Economic Development Committee as well, looked at areas in the township that were undeveloped or available, and this one property came to mind. And of those uses that were lacking in the township, staff felt that this was a good location for such a use because of the adjacent zoning, the apartments, and then other non-single-family uses in the vicinity, the Turpin Farm, or I'm sorry, not the Moats Farm across the street, and then some of the other, the Clough Business District, and Clough Pike being an arterial roadway. So when this went to Hamilton County Regional Planning, their bylaws only allow them to look at the future land use map and the color on the map. Their bylaws do not, if the proposed zone change isn't consistent with our color on our map, it doesn't allow them to do further analysis and evaluate the zone change proposal. And that is what happened when this was reviewed by Regional Planning. The requested change to planned multifamily did not match the color on our map, which was single family. So since it was inconsistent, Regional Planning denied it on that basis, and there was no further consideration of the application and how it may fit with some of the other elements and other chapters of our comprehensive plan.
So we would have never agreed to zone it multifamily or designate it as multifamily, because obviously you wouldn't want someone to come along and stick 300 apartment units up there. But there is no transitional zoning, right? I mean, there's no senior living zoning. Am I correct about that?
There's no senior living zone.
So really, we could not have even, what's that?
I just noticed something here on the time clock. Go ahead.
Okay, so even if, I mean, if there was such a designation through the comprehensive plan, that likely would have been designated if there was a
Yes.
senior living.
On our
designation.
in our land use map and the comprehensive plan, we have properties identified as institutional uses. Those were existing institutional uses at the time of our adoption of the comprehensive plan.
Schools,
So those are your
churches.
schools, your churches. This type of use fits that land use definition. However, there are no vacant institutional. The exception of that was Beach Acres and Stonecrest. That was pretty much the exception to the rule. With this, we looked at the other chapters and elements of the comprehensive plan, and we felt that this use was compatible, and that's why staff and ultimately the zoning commission recommended for approval.
And the comprehensive plan is, how old is the plan now?
It was adopted in 2016.
But I mean, when did it start? Like, how long have we been?
That was our second update. So 2006 was our original plan.
2006.
Mm-hmm.
And updating that plan, just so everyone understands, involves residents of the community. Approximately how many?
So we had a steering team of about 35 members, and those were residents, business owners, our partnering agencies, Board of Ed, or school district. But outside of our steering team, we also had public engagement opportunities. We had public meetings. We also had online opportunities, and we used social media heavily this past go-around with our update.
I mean, I know the open house the one open house I attended probably you had the table set up. There was probably 50 or 60 people.
We had
at
at least that, if not closer
Okay.
to 70.
It also, in addition to the comprehensive plan and that steering committee, we have an economic development committee that also looks at these type of projects as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just to refresh everyone's memory, they did weigh in on this particular project.
They did weigh on this, and they were supportive of this use at that location as well.
That committee is approximately 25, Steve, is it about 25?
30.
And that is all residents that live around the township?
Residents or business owners. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Got any other questions on the comprehensive plan, guys?
The comprehensive plan, though, it's a document you look at as a whole, correct? I mean,
You have to look at it as a whole, and it is a guide. It's not written in stone. And some individual parcels can be missed during that process. You know, this is a very unique piece of property that's sandwiched between township open space and an apartment community. So you do have to look at not just the color on the map. You have to look at the plan as a whole and all the different elements of the plan.
I mean, I was the trustee liaison on that when we
Mhm.
went through the comprehensive plan, and I, as part of the process, I know we did not look at every parcel in Anderson Township. That's just not the way it works. Excuse me, but we looked as a whole, what do we want to see in Anderson Township?
That's
So,
correct.
yeah.
Mhm.
But I think I think you probably should point out, because Paul mentioned, I mean, this is not a staff decision in the sense that we're not dictating development. I mean, I think
Yes,
that
correct.
input is important because of
Right,
the
we had a
process.
lot of input from, I mean, we sat around this room, a big table, and got input from a lot of different people. And then we had people come in, that was just the steering committee, and then we invited other people, and it was packed in here. We had, tables of 10 people, and everybody was writing their wants, needs on little Post-it notes and putting them out there. So there was a lot of community involvement in this plan.
The draft takes about 9 months to prepare,
Right.
and then it's another 3 to 4 months to go through the adoption process. It's about 1.5 years to fully update your comprehensive
Mhm.
plan.
Okay, next, the creek. I know there's been obviously some concern about the creek and erosion, watershed, things of that nature. So, again, just so we all understand, this development will have adequate detention ponding, and will meet all regulations that that are out there, that have been put forth, correct?
Correct, 120%.
100,
20%
okay,
is what the applicant has stated.
and what does that mean in terms of what layman's terms?
So,
people understand?
sorry, in any new development, you're required to provide detention so that the runoff pre-development is the same or better than post-development. So you're essentially holding back the water and then releasing, after a rain event, you're holding the water and then releasing the water at a slower rate, slower than it would have pre-development. They are saying that they're doing 100% and even 120% of that, holding 120% of the water.
Okay.
And releasing it. So
Is the property next to it that we own, there was some...
Well, and back to that, these
Yeah.
regulations have been in place since the late 90s, and that's part of the creek's problem, because most of the development that feeds into the creek happened before the late 90s.
So where I was going with that was, so for instance, even the reserve of Turpin, certainly Turpin Hills has no detention ponding as far as I know.
Turpin Hills does not.
And does the reserve of Turpin?
We've
Which, by the way,
contacted-
just so everyone, reserve of Turpin is in Mount Washington, with the exception of the first house is in Mount Washington. But does it have detention ponding?
I contacted the city of Cincinnati, and we went back and forth, and we could not find that there was detention in the. It was not confirmed, but we could not locate it.
If a neighborhood like that was concerned enough about creek erosion and wanted to do detention ponding, is that even something you can do after the fact?
You can, but it's very difficult because it would have to be on someone's private property,
Yeah.
essentially.
Okay. Guys, anything else on that?
No.
Green space. Just so everyone understands, this is not green space. This is private property. And I did a little bit of research because I know that word is thrown out a lot. Anderson Township, Vicki, were we not the first green space township in the entire state?
That is our claim to fame, yes.
So this board, hold that very near and dear to the history of the township. In fact, I think it was last year, maybe it was the year before, we added 100 acres of green space
Yes.
to our inventory. We're looking just in there. We're considering another small 3 acres of green space. This is not green space. This
Green
is
space
private
has a
property.
technical term.
It does.
Right, right.
And even though it's been fallow and it hasn't been developed, it is not green space. However, I think as part of this development, considering the fact that we do own the 9 acres next to it, I know we've had some discussion about this, but to the extent that we can designate this official green space or open space so that there is no more development, you've checked that is something we can pursue?
It is, but it would be something that, for example, if the developer wants to put in a right turn lane and there needed to be some type of easement, or if there was some other kind of work that needed to be done on the property, that would have to be done before the green space designation. Right now, we have over 700, or nearly 700 acres of property that's maintained as green space, and that will remain in its natural state. It has a value of estimated of $15 million. And when you combine that with the parks and the open space in the township, we've got about 2,800 acres of land that's publicly accessible, which encompasses 15.5% of the total acreage in the township, which means there's approximately 60 acres of land for each 1,000 residents in the township.
And according to, the information that we saw, which is the National Park and Recreations Association that puts out statistics every year, Anderson has 5 times the amount of green space that the average community is recommended to have. So I want to make it very clear that that word gets thrown around a lot, and we are very cognizant of green space in this township. And so to the extent that it does work out, and if this does get approved, and to the extent that it does work out and we're not taking on something that we don't know about today, I think
Right.
I won't speak for you guys, but I think we're in agreement that that can remain undevelopable space, green space.
And we could certainly work through that with the Green Space Advisory Committee, and as I said, after any improvements that need to be made, and then look at designating that. We can come back to the board for official action.
Okay.
If I could note on that as well,
Sure.
Mr. Girth, by our estimations, there are about 27 parcels that are in the Clough watershed that are green space, comprising nearly 106 acres. So as far as preserving and being one of the largest landowners in that watershed, the township is that, and those properties are left in their natural state as well. The retention facility just outside this building that was constructed in 2008 is in that watershed as well as our detention facility at the Operations Center on Beachmont Avenue, and the detention facility that's at the post office. All of those are facilities that we installed upstream of that area, and it's one of the recommendations coming from the stormwater study back in 2008 was trying to preserve open space in the watershed. So we continue to make that effort.
Thanks, Steve. Okay, any other questions that you guys have?
Well, I just have a question. Steve, you and I were talking, I had asked some questions about the stormwater. Like, so prior to 1990 or whatever.
97,
97, early 90, or late
90s.
Late 90s. There was no zoning or whatever
Well, there were zoning requirements, but
No, I
there were
mean
no
zoning,
stormwater detention
stormwater
requirements, correct.
requirement.
Correct.
So a lot of what we're seeing today, as I understand it, is a result of what was done back in the 70s, 80s.
Mhm. Yes.
Right. So some of what's required now could actually help that situation, as I understand it, on downstream?
So new development is required to put in detention, so new development shouldn't make the situation worse.
Right.
If new detention, like what we did here, that has helped the situation. And if there are opportunities for if there are property owners that have the space available for that, yes, that would help the situation.
The question was presented to us on social media regarding what was done since this document was prepared back in 2008. The image that's on your screen is a page from that, which pertains to the Clough watershed. The right side of that is pretty telling with regards to the development in this watershed. It's about 91% built out. Most of that, as it indicated there, again, this study was from 1998, indicated it happened prior to 1996 when those requirements went into effect. Since that point in time, not only have we talked about the improvements that we've made, there are approximately 50 properties, not in this watershed, but any redevelopment that's happened, any new development has been required to install detention facilities, which has helped to mitigate some of the upstream impacts of development. You've got both public and private open space, so not only the public open space that we talk about, but privately dedicated open space through the zoning process. Another aspect of this is the township's zoning requirements were updated several times during that period now to have limitations on impervious surface ratio, which is the amount of buildings and paving per parcels. We've done a lot, and we're a leader in that area. Can we do more? Absolutely. We continue to do that. That doesn't get into the educational elements, everything else that we've tried to do, from stream education to storm drain labeling. All that is geared at education and actually trying to improve the situation. And oftentimes, especially in build-up watersheds like you have here, redevelopment does help the situation, at least during the storm events. Certainly it adds more water, but it reduces the peak events, which is when you have the erosion issues that you see, and that a lot of the images that are in our document and others have presented during this case.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Any final comments? Andrew?
No, I'm, as I said, we went through a lot of this the last time, and we were here to, the thing we wanted to look at most closely was this traffic impact study, so I appreciate the opportunity to look it over. I also noticed, a lot of I'm looking at the resolution, and I'll point it out to the public, but a lot of the willingness on part of the developer here to, seems very willing to work with the township as far as to mitigate some of the erosion concerns and traffic concerns, and so I just am happy that we have the full information now we need to make this decision.
Dee?
No, I just got my questions answered, thank you.
Okay. Paul, thank you. So we have a comprehensive plan that, I hope we've cleared that up, but that plan has had a lot of input from a lot of our residents. We have an economic development committee that has a couple of dozen people, all residents in the township, that also look at these particular cases. We have a planning and zoning department, which God bless them because they have tough jobs. And you guys do a phenomenal job. You guys are second to none, and I appreciate the work that you guys do. I know you're not the most popular people in the world, and I know that, can be trying sometimes, but we have five planners, Paul, or Steve, right? Okay. So we have a staff. That's one place that we have not, we've tried to cut back where we can, but we have kept planning and zoning as robust as we possibly can because we know we have a lot of interest in Anderson Township, and we want to make sure we're doing the right things. Our planning and zoning department also recommends pre-development meetings, and they also give feedback to developers who come into the township and give them guidance and say, that probably isn't going to fly. You probably ought to consider these things. You need to listen to the residents, which, by the way, happened in this case. You guys have scaled back your project. You're willing to do things as a compromise. Appreciate that. Our staff, not only our zoning department, but Steve and Vicki, they answer every call. They answer every email. I myself, in this particular case, have answered every single email, which I think I have about 25. We have put together reports, have addressed a lot of the questions that people have asked, even those on social media, and have put those reports out. I have personally met, and I'm sure you guys have talked to people, but I have personally met with several groups, including homeowners associations, the last one Tuesday night at Clough Ridge Condominiums. So when the Inquirer writes, are we turning a deaf ear on our residents? The answer is no. We are not. We take your comments, we take these cases very seriously. We listen. Furthermore, I'm a 30-year resident in Anderson Township. I grew up in Anderson Township. I drive that road every single day. Well, maybe not. Almost every single day. I have a wife. I have 3 kids who drive that road every single day. Actually, multiple times a day in the summer when we're going back and forth to Turpin Swim Club where we are members. My kids will be going to Turpin High School over the course of the next 8 years. And my mom, who happens to be sitting in the back, hi Mom, thanks for coming, lives in the reserve of Turpin. So if anybody has any reason to question this development, and if there was any reason why this was going to be a detriment or a safety hazard to my family, the kids, the community, I would absolutely call them out. The fact is that this is not different than the other cases we've had to look at. I understand this is in your backyard for most of you, but to treat this any different than we've treated the people on Nagel, Woodruff, Hopper, Air, Beachmont, 5 Mile, Skytop, well, that's just not going to happen. And even though that might cost me some glares down at the swim club, and I have plenty of friends that live in Turpin and Royal Green, our job is to review the facts of these cases, not the emotion. This project has to meet criteria. It has to check boxes. And in my opinion, it checks all those boxes. With that, we have a motion, resolution before you guys.
In regards to case 3, 2018, I move to approve and adopt a zone change from A, residence, to DD, planned multiple residence for property located at 6201 and 6301 Clough Pike. I'd like to also notate that the developer has demonstrated, and it will be in the motion, a willingness to work with the township and other agencies to explore and possibly construct a downstream overflow basin and or upstream slope stabilization to help mitigate existing conditions. And I'd also like to notate that is in the resolution that the right turn lane be constructed on Clough Pike into the westernmost access of the property.
Second.
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes. Thank you, everybody. Moving on, presentations, recognition.
Good evening. It is my honor to introduce a resolution that would honor Lieutenant Matt Guy. Lieutenant Matt Guy was in charge of District 5, our sheriff's office, out here for 6 years. He is a man of utmost integrity. He was always conscientious about the budget, making sure that residents received responses as quickly as possible. He was creative in looking for solutions to problems that residents may have, whether it's parking issues on their street or looking for speed enforcement, those types of things. He was always there. He was a member of our management team, even though he's an employee of the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office. He is a member of our team, our family here, and he is overall a highly respected leader within District 5 and within the Sheriff's Office. Lieutenant Guy was, the end of last year, he was reassigned to the Regional Enforcement Narcotics Unit, where he worked years ago, and so he will still be providing services to Anderson in some way. And he was wonderful in helping us find his successor, Lieutenant Dan McElroy, who has following in his shoes, and we're very pleased to have him here with us this evening. But I would like to have Lieutenant Guy step up and ask the board to consider the resolution before it.
Well, I am honored to present a resolution of appreciation with respect to the services of Lieutenant Matthew J. Guy. And I didn't recognize him.
I didn't either. Like, I'm looking, it's like, where is he?
I thought Dee was looking around. Is he here? Is he here?
Why didn't he come?
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Looks good on you. I like it. Oh, I like it. That's funny.
I know you're going to miss driving over here from the west side.
Yeah, it was actually this evening, actually wasn't too bad. And can I say, public hearings, I really, really missed those. I didn't realize how much I missed them. I'm humbled by this, and I'm really, really appreciative of this honor. I do appreciate it. My 6 years here, I've been with the department for a little over 27 years. And I think my 6 years here is probably my most successful era with our department so far. Working here and working with the people in township government and also the management team was different for me. It was new, it was more administrative than I was used to, but it wound up being kind of a blessing in disguise. I was given very little notice I was coming here, it was foreign to me. I worked here in coach training when I was brand new back in 1993, and then not again until 2013. So it was very foreign to me. The district, the offices you guys have here are fantastic. The residents are always very supportive of our department. We appreciate that greatly. The trustees have always been supportive, and the management team was a lot of fun to work with. I mean, it is kind of odd because I was kind of a hybrid, you know, working for the sheriff's department, but also part of the management team. But, you know, I was accepted as one of their own, and we had a lot of fun at some of these meetings, and we got a lot of good work done. I mean, this township government really is forward-thinking in doing things that are beneficial to the residents, and they're lucky to have them do that. Also, again, to echo Vicky's thoughts, you guys are in really good hands with Lieutenant McElroy. He'll do a fine job, and you know, he has the support of all the officers, and as part of the management team, he'll fit in just fine. So, thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Chief, I think you're up.
Good evening again. If I could have Lieutenant Doug Fisher step forward, please, with me. This is somewhat the end of an era with Doug retiring. Doug has been with the department for 29 years. As of January 17th, 2018. And I wanted to do a little bit of honor to his career, and I wanted to talk a little bit about how he came to be with Anderson Township. It's somewhat of a circuitous path, so if you wouldn't give me just a few minutes, I would appreciate it. In 1980, Doug joined Withamsville Fire Department, which is now UT, our neighbor, and he had the benefit and the joy of working along with his father, retired Assistant Chief Bill Fisher at that time. During that time, he was trained as a firefighter, and in 1982, he joined the Withamsville Fire Department as a volunteer firefighter. In 1983, Doug enrolled in paramedic school, and part of that training was a requirement that he ride with established paramedic units. And just so happened that a few years before that, Anderson had started a paramedic service, so he rode with some of our first paramedics. And that was the first time that Doug really started his relationship with Anderson Township. However, in 1984, Doug thought the calling to serve his country was more important. He joined the United States Air Force, and he served 4 years of active duty. He was certified in crash fire rescue. He was trained as advanced rescue technician. He was a hazmat technician, and he earned the military basic training ribbon, the short tour overseas ribbon, and his marksman qualification. He was awarded the Air Force Good Conduct Medal and the Achievement Medal, and honorably discharged in April of 1988 at the rank of E4. In 1989, Doug was hired as a full-time firefighter paramedic at the Greater Cincinnati Airport. And later that same year, Doug joined Anderson Township as a volunteer. We still had volunteers back then. And in 1992, a position opened and Doug left the airport and joined Anderson Township as a full-time firefighter on shift 2. Doug was promoted to rank of lieutenant in December of 2003. During his time with Anderson Township, Doug has been active in many roles and responsibilities within the department. He has earned his certification as an Ohio Fire Inspector. He has continued his training in hazmat to be a first responder and hazmat technician. He was also a member of the Hamilton County Loveland Sims Task Force 1 as a dive rescue member and as a rope rescue technician. He's completed numerous levels of NIMS training here in the township to get him ready for the incident command position that he might have had to serve as a lieutenant. He completed the Fire Officer 1 training, and he was significant in helping with the preparations and opening the Station 22 in Newtown in 2016. Doug has already started to move towards new horizons and new challenges in his life. I know he has two adult children now, Sydney and Perry is training for his entrance into the fire service to be the third generation of firefighter. Doug is currently completing his studies for a BA degree in Health Information Management at UC. He is currently engaged to Rhonda. I wish you the best endeavors. And I want to thank Doug personally for his dedication and service, his hard work. We have worked many, many emergencies together, and he always gave 100% without exception. On behalf of the firefighters that served the department prior to his service, whose legacy he has proudly passed on, and on behalf of the firefighters Doug has worked with over the past 29 years, a number of them are in the crowd tonight, shows what the department thought of him and what the members thought of him. And on behalf of the many hundreds of individuals, both young and old, that Doug has personally provided care for, sympathy, and comfort to throughout the Anderson Township and the neighboring communities. I want to extend my appreciation for everything Doug has done to make Anderson Township a better and safer community, and to wish Doug a happy, healthy, rewarding, and prolonged retirement. Thank you.
Doug, you're welcome to say something.
Yeah, you can speak.
I will keep this short, sweet, and simple. Thank you.
Thank you.
To the Anderson Township Trustees, administration, all the way back to your predecessors. Great opportunity. I hope I've served you and the residents well and with honor. Chief Martin, your staff, thank you. All the way to predecessors back to Chief Askey, who recruited me. A lot of fun. It's been an honor and a privilege. Thank you. We've had a lot of fun together, you and Chief Smith. Been an honor. Thank you. To the firefighters, Local 3111, brothers and sister, thank you for your support, dedication. It has been an honor and a privilege. I wish you all a safe journey to where I'm at. I share a lot of memories, a lot of laughs, some of my own expense. You can laugh. Some close calls, a little bit of blood and a lot of some tears for our brothers that we've lost. I won't forget. And last, my family, my mom, he was here, my dad. Thanks for putting up with me. Hopes, goals, dreams, and objectives for allowing me to get where I've been. My son and daughter, I know you didn't choose this life. I was gone a lot, a third of your life. But thanks for your love and support. I'm very, very, very proud of you. Perry, third generation starting next week. You will find out this is truly the best job in the world. Rhonda, my love, thank you. Love, support, I look forward to a lot more years together, just as he said. I love you all. And with that, Chief. Ladies and gentlemen.
I will try.
It's a tough one.
If I could please have firefighter Brad Parker step forward. Maybe. Well, with the closing of one career, we have the budding of another. Tonight, the fire department is presenting firefighter Brad Parker for the board's consideration as Doug Fisher's replacement as lieutenant. Brad joined Anderson Township in 1995. He's been active in our Life Safety Clown Brigade and other important life safety roles. We're hoping he will once again engage in those roles because we're trying to activate our life safety a little more. In addition to required certifications as a firefighter, paramedic, and fire inspector, Brett is also a certified fire and EMS instructor and has taught at Great Oaks Career Institute since 2007. He is also a fire instructor at the Ohio Fire Academy in Reynoldsburg. He holds a career technical teacher educator license from Wright State University. He has earned his Bachelor of Science in Administration and Marketing from Xavier University. He holds and earned a Master of Science in Safety, Security, and Emergency Management from Eastern Kentucky University. He's coached numerous local sports teams at Miami Valley Christian Academy and locally here in the township. most notably the Anderson Township Fast Pitch Softball League. We believe that Brad brings a number of commendable qualities to the position of lieutenant. We're excited about what he's going to accomplish with our management team and as a new member in that position. And we ask the board to consider a motion appointing firefighter Brad Parker to the position of lieutenant within Anderson Township Fire and Rescue, effective January 18th, 2019.
With that, I move to appoint Brad Parker as lieutenant for the Fire and Rescue Department effective January 18, 2019.
Second.
Yes.
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 Congratulations.
It's not official till the pin's on, so. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
No, it's all good. We have more fun. It's his family.
Okay, at this time, public forum, any individuals that wish to address this board may do so at this time.
Yeah, you can leave, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
Nice
Thank
try,
you.
Matt. Come forward.
Yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
yeah, sure.
Yeah. She's a teacher. She raises her hand.
I was waiting.
All right, that's great.
All right, thank you. So I'm not sure how this interaction works. Are we allowed to have a conversation, or do I just pose my thoughts and you think on them?
Just your thoughts.
Okay, thank you. So I don't want to, waste my time talking about the vote. I realize that had just happened. I do want to bring up a couple things.
Can you state your name, please?
Oh,
and
I'm
address?
sorry. I'm Erin Cox. I live at 5880 Turpin Hills Drive. So one of the things I wanted to bring up is last time I was here, we brought up the idea of conditions. And there was some discussion about possibly adding and encouraging these builders to go beyond just connecting one end of their driveway to the other, and possibly connecting Copperleaf Drive all the way down to Newtown Road. It seemed kind of awkward, that concept of just a little slat of like sidewalk there. And so I'm not sure if you have discussed it or if you're still thinking about it. I just want to put it back out there. I think would be a huge asset to the community and a really awesome condition that maybe you can consider. It sounds like they wouldn't be on the hook for it, but I do think it's a huge need. Mr. Girth, you know how people are coming and going from the swim club. So I have a huge concern that it's just not safe. And I have seen people walk and cut through that open space multiple times, kids dragging bikes back and forth. And now we're talking about this potential new 63 home residence down the road. I feel like if we're moving in this direction, let's make it real then. Let's put some sidewalk down. to have it just choppy just doesn't quite add up to me. Also, the detention basin on the open space, that was brought up last time. I think that I didn't hear anybody talk about that again. I think that's a need if you're going to close it off and make it green space. If you do that, you should do that detention basin prior. And if you do that, why not just make this a walking path around it? Why not make it a more pleasant space before you close it off as green space? I think that would be just a great concept, frankly, so I just want to throw it out there. Also, I wonder if there's been a comprehensive corridor study for Clough done. I understand that there was a specific traffic study, but I'm concerned that it really didn't take into consideration these potential developments that are being discussed. And one last clarification before my time is out. As far as the environmental impact that's going on with Clough Creek, I just want to say that I feel that everything that we're doing since 2008 most certainly does not actually help it. It doesn't deteriorate it further. I would be in agreement with you on that. But it certainly isn't helping the situation, and there are ways we can help the situation. And so I would love to be involved in talking about those ways versus just saying, yeah, we're not making it worse, so we're helping it. I don't really see that as being truth. Thank you. I do appreciate your time.
Thank you. The one thing I think we can speak to is the detention on our, because that was part of the resolution, correct?
I don't think so.
Okay.
There was
So
there was a condition in the resolution indicated, again, because those aren't on the applicant's property, we can't necessarily force them to do that, but they've indicated willingness. The township's certainly willing to explore it on our property and also the upstream part. As far as the sidewalk connection, that is part of our trails plan, and to the extent that this development would be in a tax increment financing district, it would be possible to utilize those funds for improvements in that area, whatever they might be. That's something we would continue to explore down the road, but it's not possible to weave it into specifically as a condition, but it is in the resolution. Yep.
And as far as helping with more detention, I mean, I brought up the question in my comments whether or not some of the existing neighborhoods can do anything. So I think we can look into it as well as the corridor study for Clough. We'll have discussion about it.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
My name is Alfred Thin, 6310 Cooperative Lane. I have a question regarding what the builder, the report I said
That's not you.
That's not you.
I'm sorry?
Keep going.
Okay. The water retaining pond capacity 120%. With that, they did not mention how much water they can hold, what kind of the capacity rainfall within a certain span period of time. How about a 2 or 3 inch hold? Can they hold? Or how many if the rain comes down for hours and days? Nobody mentioned that. This is a very simple question, could be asked in the junior class, because anything would have a condition set up. That 120% is not condition. It is a certain expression. And my house is really near the construction site. It's really make a great impact in my house. And plus, the information released here indicates that there are plenty of beds in the surrounding area, and there's no need for this retirement center. And the second petition probably was sold on the line within 2 days, reached over 1,000. Plus the first one, if you count 2.3, the adults in the household would reach 3,000 already, which would reach a mark for a call to a public action. So I'm not sure what's going on. This is passed so quick. It's scheduled for March 19th, or also the scheduled to discuss the pass the project, but now moved to February. I'm pretty much upset about it. If you look at the map, my house is just next to the site. You would have to think about your house. If your house there, are you going to pass it? We pay tax every year, $7,000 a year. I'm staying there for 18 years. If you look at the band, the erosion comes through, it's getting quicker and quicker. If you allow this happens, not just my house, all the houses down the stream would have a great impact on that. I'm pretty upset about it. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Hello, Guy Wolf, 6001 Stirrup Road in Turpin Hills. And the point that I wanted to make is about the traffic corridor. I was at a presentation Monday night and understand that as long as a development is suggested and it's within zoning, no traffic study is done. My concern is that we're adding one after another, and there's a big rush of development right now. There's this that generates 318 trips a day, the Harmony Living Center. Another PUD going in that conservatively generates another 180 trips a day, and then the 63 unit one that will generate about 600 trips per day. That adds 1,100 trips per day in less than a 3-mile stretch of Clough. As far as I know, no traffic study has been requested of the county engineer. I understand that can be done, and it's not a cost for that. And I don't know what the township's proactive stance is on managing and controlling the increase in traffic. At some point, a widening of Clough is inevitable if we keep allowing all of these developments to occur without that control. Thank you.
Thank you.
We will discuss a more comprehensive traffic study. I don't know, Steve or Vicki, if you want to add anything to that, but.
Similar to our efforts, long-standing efforts on Beachmont Avenue, our efforts on Round Bottom Road and other corridors, we certainly can look at Clough. It's not a magic solution of just adding lanes. Ideally, a left turn lane would have been on for Turpin Hills 40 years ago. There would have ideally been a left turn lane at Copperleaf 20 years ago. Those didn't happen. Those are ways of helping with traffic flow. Those types of studies look at signalization. They looked at how the signals are coordinated, et cetera. So that's certainly something we can look at. We did a traffic study with the improvements that we did in the Clough Historic District. They've now been in there for, 4 or 5 years. That study goes back to the late 2008-9 period. And left turn lanes at Royal Green and in Berkshire and such helped with that, as well as some continued tweaks of the traffic signals. So we generally don't go to the county engineer. We work with them. We hire a third party to help with that, their staff as well. So it just gives us that many more eyes and ears looking at that. But that's something we have discussed to look at the bigger picture. With regards to the individual zoning applications, those requests can be made again. Monday or Tuesday night was an open house, or whenever that was, that Tuesday was an open house period. So no application's been submitted yet. There'll be a meeting Monday night for the planning and development down the road. It's certainly a request that can be made to the zoning commission, and when there are requests and changes made, these can be brought up. So typically a straight subdivision, there'd be no traffic impact study that would be needed. But when you begin looking at planned unit developments and zone changes like we had tonight, those are opportunities to do that. And again, the overall approach that Mr. Girth talked about and that you mentioned is something we can look at as well. So.
Thanks, Steve. Go ahead.
Hi, Tony Becker, 6104 Clough. And first, I just would like to say the characterization that we are here because it's happening in our backyard is false and not very kind. I think we are all here for the health of this community. We all love it, and we want it to stay a place we want to be at. Now, in terms of it's a decision made, but there's a lot of new development coming along Clough. And this just happened with the last rainfall. This big tree right at the bottom of Bartles Hill Road. It's going to continue to happen. I'm sorry, engineering solutions are fallible. Human history is filled with great ideas that failed. These basins aren't enough. The development you're thinking about needs a lot more study. With this increased rainfall we're having, it's going to overwhelm the basins. I'm glad you mentioned the basins. I think I know where 2 of those that you're talking about are. You can't find them because they're not maintained. They're overgrown. They're filled with trees, And obviously, there's no stewardship going on once these basins are made. So as you continue to think about developing these fragile areas that are along Clough Pike and along the creek, really, really look hard at it before you take the engineer's word. I mean, I can leave you this. I've got so many of these pictures of trees falling into the creek. The creek is broadening, and this rainstorm we had was not even a big one. I mean, it's flooded the Ohio, but it wasn't a rain event that we've seen in the past, and it's just going to get worse. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Jeff Harmon. I live at 5644 Mile. It's great that we're looking at these individually, and I hear multiple times that we can look into it or we can consider that. That's not an actionable item. That's just saying we could. Like we could do a lot of things, but a lot of times in government it doesn't happen. So more concrete, and a lot of this, I believe and I think when it's comes to terms of our township and meetings that decisions such as this magnitude are made, I don't understand that. It shouldn't be I think or I know. It should be I know. So that's one thing. And with Clough and Anderson on average being at a 30% decline down towards the river, not only is it good Clough in these developments that aren't being considered in its entirety, going to have an impact on that area, but it's also going to have an impact on all the property in Anderson Township going down towards the river. And since obviously the council seems to be more driven about money, we got to think about the tax revenue that is being lost when all these roads are washed out, and the casino, people can't get to the casino and the restaurants and whatnot. And another thing I would like to bring up is the issue of the MSD and these watersheds that are being constantly polluted with human feces. I don't know, you referenced your family and how you want to deal with them. That's great, but when Clough Pike washes out at some point, and if it's not just the underneath part, and one of your family members is driving on that road when it happens and it falls into the creek, not only obviously is there a danger as far as drowning, but there's E. coli, fecal matter in there. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but I wouldn't want my family in that. And just overall, I think the focus on these individual projects goes completely against the 2016 comprehensive plan. Within that plan, the 2006 study, watershed study, is referenced multiple times, and what is going on is against that study, against the recommendation, and that was my question. And the fact that the county prides themselves on being so meticulous in documenting what we've done to do great things, the fact that you couldn't answer what we've done besides zoning is alarming. And also with the sewage, is anybody considered that? Is MSD in these conversations? That's an issue that I'd like to bring up as well.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Susan Wheatley, 6104 Clough Pike. I know this has been a difficult issue, and I appreciate the efforts here. The main question I have, I've expressed all of my feelings already in emails and so on. I won't go over that. The main issue I have overall is the spotty nature of this, as other people have said. Some things are in front of the zoning commission. Will they ever get to the trustees? So if they're not going to get to the trustees, what is other than the comprehensive plan, the point that was just made, what is the leadership, what's the approach? I mean, I asked that, I don't know the answer to that. how do you, I know there's citizens committees and so forth, but citizens committees don't have enough clout to deal with it. So when you have, there's a zoning commission, and they're gonna look at these PUDs, right? They're gonna look at this one, this huge one that's proposed at the, under 32 down in that cliffside. There's the other one that was up near Wolf Angle. I don't know the ins and outs of this stuff, but if that doesn't come in front of the trustees at any point, then I don't know what you guys can do about that. You're elected officials. I don't know where you deal with that when we talk about it on a practical level. You know, whether, okay, we say we have a corridor study. You've got your professional planners here. Where does that go then? And who looks at that? Planners have a view. The trustees see what the planners do. They have their own views. The zoning commission has its views. PUD. I'm very concerned about the one on 4 Mile that's coming up. Like my husband said, I am not looking at this from my backyard. I'm not some NIMBY. I don't operate that way. I look at the whole city, the county, the country. I don't care. Our house, who cares? You know, we'll be gone one of these days, seriously. That's not why I'm in this. So I would like to convey, this group is actually, that's been talking about this, is not a backyard kind of group. We're a township. We're a broader view. I've been impressed with the people who have come together. I never knew any of these people before. So I guess I'd just like some thinking on what is the glue that puts together, say there is a county traffic study or a third party, which I think maybe is even a better idea. Township gets a third party neutral study done of the traffic corridor. Of how does that get handled when, you know, that Monday is the zoning commission, right? Or Tuesday, whenever that is. There's another zoning commission. There's the trustees. I don't know the answer to that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Wheatley, the leadership that's in place for each of these specific developments is done so by the Ohio Revised Code. There are zoning commissions that hear cases, we hear cases. It is the way that it operates. We are not in charge of dictating how that works. To your point, sir, about facts, we don't make decisions based on emotions. We make them based on facts, which is what we did this evening. Ms. Wheatley, you asked about where are the checks and balances. We do have a comprehensive plan that has residential input. We do have an economic development committee that looks at every single one of these and gives their input, which, by the way, all of those meetings are open to the public and can be found on our website. You can go to any one of them that you want. Not only do we have a planning and zoning department, but we also, the trustees, the staff, get involved. When people call us, we answer questions. We don't have to do any of that. I didn't mean any disrespect, Mr. Becker, in the sense that I mentioned that this was happening in your backyard. But every single email I received is from somebody around the development. And my point that I was making was I can't make a decision based on the surrounding property owners that don't want this next to them. We have to look at this overall as a township. What is the township view of this? And that is what we did on Nagel. And I don't remember seeing anybody in this room at the Nagel development meeting, but maybe you were, okay? The same thing for Woodruff, the same thing for Hopper, Air, and any other zoning change that's happened in the last 5 years. Generally speaking, the people that come out and complain and have issues with those developments happen to live close by. But we can't treat any different based on location. We look at it from an overall viewpoint, which goes back to that comprehensive plan. So I know it can be confusing, but there are checks and balances in place, and our staff at the Planning and Zoning Department go above and beyond what is required. They do not have to suggest pre-development meetings. They do not have to recommend to developers that they do certain things. They do it because they care, and they do it because they know that there are going to be questions and concern raised with all of these developments. So that is part of the checks and balances that you're asking about. Anybody else?
Well, I just have a comment about the resolution that we did vote on tonight. I mean, we didn't read the entire resolution, but there's requirements in this resolution that this plan go back to the county engineer, the Hamilton County Planning Development, the Metropolitan Sewer District, the Natural Resource Conservation Service, and the fire prevention. So Those things haven't happened yet. I mean, this plan we're looking at is the preliminary. I mean, we all know what it looks like. They've changed it, you know, people didn't like it, so they have but they're, like the natural resource, I know, I actually appreciate you all coming forward with the issues with Clough Creek, because until the last meeting, wasn't aware. I mean, I just wasn't. I've never seen all those pictures, and I appreciate you bringing that forward. So this plan will be looked at by the Corps of Engineers, or whatever we call it. And we can look at those issues along Clough Creek, because I agree with you. That is one of our, a valuable natural resource that we do want to protect. So in anything we do, that will be considered.
Thank you.
So
That is a good point, Dee. Thanks for bringing that up.
One point Dee didn't, well, she did bring up, but remember, we are very, first of all, you're asking some good questions as far as you don't know, you think everything might come before the trustees, and that's just not the way it works. If a property such as the one you're referencing regarding the homes further down is zoned homes and they're proposing zones, that goes before the zoning board. And that is the place where the opportunity for residents to come and inquire and ask the zoning board, who is appointed, but correct me if I'm wrong, this one came out of zoning, was approved unanimously, the one we did tonight, is that correct? Now, remember, Clough Creek, I mean, I would like to say we could put whatever resources, we would need the permission and the oversight of the Corps of Engineers before we even stuck a shovel in Clough Creek, is that correct? They are the governing body, and they're not particularly, given the layers of government, the either easiest or most responsive agency to work with. So we are cognizant of your concerns there with Clough Creek, and it is something that Dee may not have known. I'm sure most of the residents that don't live around there know, nor do they maybe give it much thought. They should, because if you live downstream from there, it could affect you. So remember, I feel that some of the things, I've heard some comments made, and I understand the frustrations. Trust me, I do. But I don't think that we are not, some people have to remember, we're a township form of government, which is very limited in our scope of power. And we are operating in honestly, what we feel is the best, most efficient way we can. And you can always call up, our staff is always here to answer questions and say, ask the question, hey, where do I go to voice a question about this development or that development? Nothing happens in secret, and we are not some all-powerful board that makes the decisions for everything that goes on in this township. That's just not the way this form of government is set up, and it's not the way we conduct our business. So I understand your frustration of not knowing. Well, one is a PUD, one's not. I get that, but as I said, if it's zoned homes and it is home development proposed, it's going to go before the zoning board, and that's where I'll ask a question of you. Well, you don't have to answer this, but I would like to know if a lot of the people here this evening were at our comprehensive plan committee meetings that we had a couple of years ago now.
2016.
Mm-hmm.
I
mean, that room, this room was cordoned off, but that room was full of tables and whiteboards and cue cards and ideas, and we had so many residents. It was so refreshing to see so many residents putting ideas in a pot, and that's the way township government should work, because you had a lot of input of the residents. It wasn't a committee appointed by somebody to come up with some grand plan of what we were listening, or the committee was listening to what the residents were saying and try to rate what the needs of the community were. So I love the involvement. I encourage more of it, and please, I mean, you're asking questions here at public comments, but don't be afraid to call the township and ask the question, where do I go to get these answers? We have people here, and they do a very good job, and I like to defend them because they do a great job of answering your questions and not dodging them, and they work really hard, and they have, I do honestly believe, and I know in my heart they have the best interest of the township at heart, and I don't like to see, in my personal opinion here, I don't like to see them disparaged in any sort of way. Not that that happened tonight, but I've heard some things in the past and God knows what I see on social media, I don't necessarily comment, but calling the integrity of our township staff into question kind of irks me a little bit, because you're not going to find fine people. And I do travel to other townships and other municipalities, and I see how things are done, and I can tell you things are done very much above board with integrity here in the township. So thank you for your comments, and I sense your frustration. I feel for the frustration, but we answer any questions as to the best of our ability. I know they're going to stick you in the right direction for any questions you might have, and then be involved in the process. Come to zoning board meetings, ask the questions there. Thanks, that's all I have.
And Mr. Pappas, if I may add, excuse me, both the Zoning Commission and the Board of Zoning Appeals, those individuals are appointed by the board. They are township residents. They're not paid township employees. They are township residents who have a vested interest in this township just as you do. And they have stepped forward and thrown their name into the hat to be appointed by this board to serve on those committees. I would also like to point out with regard to any improvements along Clough Creek, and Mr. Severs alluded to this earlier, it's not just township-owned property. We have done things on township-owned property, but to do other improvements would involve private property. To expand Clough Road would cause private property to be involved. My house, my backyard goes down to Clough. I understand. I drive that road every day as well. And it is a situation where we will look at all of the options available to us. We will look at doing certain things, but there are limitations on what we can do when we have to engage private property owners to for either easements, retention ponds, whatever the case may be. So that is why we cannot say we will definitely do something, because it involves much more than township-owned land.
If I could add to that, the upstream stream bank preservation is on the apartment property. So that owner needs to agree for that to happen in this situation. The sidewalk connection down to Copperleaf. There are 3 panhandles that come off of the creek on the other side for those residences. We may likely need easements if they're willing to grant those to make that connection. The improvements we're talking about on our property is something that's never been done in this county. So whether or not the county soil and water district or planning and development would even allow that to happen, we're going to look at all those options. And I think if you were to come to prior meetings and see when folks come to our zoning meetings or come to the Board of Trustee meetings and see the follow-up that's done from that, or that's done from social media, or that's done from calls and emails, we don't turn a deaf ear, but we also don't make rosy commitments in the public eye that we can't fulfill.
Great point. Thanks, guys. Anybody else want to address the board?
Can I use my last 14 seconds?
Let's get through if anyone else wants to talk, and then you guys are more than welcome to come up afterwards and talk directly to them. Anybody else? Okay. With that, we're going to close the public forum and move on. Ken?
Thank you. Financial reports are available as of the end of January. Because of the real estate collection, the revenues look very good, but that's just a little blip. The expenditures are under what we had anticipated on a monthly basis. We'll have, as we go along through the year, we just have more information to give to you. I have no appropriation changes. However, I do want to alert you to, we are going to have to approve our permanent budget in the March regular meeting, which will be March the 21st. The staff, fiscal office, administration, department heads will be working on taking our tax budget, our temporary budget, making some changes to that, which are now available to us to make because of more information that we have. So we will be working on that, and we'll have that to present to you on the regular meeting in March. And I think we have some minutes to approve.
I move to approve the minutes for the trustee meeting for December 6, 2018 and December 20th, 2018.
Second.
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Yes.
Mr. Earth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. Margaret, anything?
No report.
Thank you. Welcome back, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
Just one item. If you'll recall, in 2017, the township entered into a contract with the Kleinger's Group, and this was to provide preliminary engineering for the Patterson Road sidewalk project. This is from Beachmont Avenue to Blue Crest. This was a sidewalk project that is ranked very high on the trails plan, however, has been very expensive to construct. So with the preliminary engineering, we did apply for a grant and was awarded a grant for the Transportation Alternative Grant. And now we are requesting authorization to enter into contract with Kleinger's again to move this project forward to develop Stage 2 and Stage 3 plans. This is part of the ODOT LPA scope of services that is required for this type of grant.
I move to authorize staff to enter into an agreement with Kleinger's Group to provide engineering services to design a plan for the Patterson Road sidewalk project for a cost not to exceed $73,850 from TIP funds.
Second. Mr. Pappas? Yes. Mrs. Stone?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Whatever it's called.
Lieutenant McElroy. Hi.
Good evening. So today's a resolution for the purchase of 3 new county or township cruisers. They'll be 2019 all-wheel drive Chargers. The purpose is, or at least with the purpose of buying 3, is to keep the fleet healthy. As you can, or at least I've been told in the past, to keep the fleet healthy, in 3 a year is good. And if you look at the mileage on these vehicles, you would agree. The lowest has 97,300 as far as what we're replacing. What's that?
That's just getting broken.
So the 3 cars being replaced are all old Ford Crown Vics. There's a 2008 with 97,300 on it, a 2009 with 103,900, and a 2011 with 800,000 miles on it. As I had many discussions with Vicki, I wanted to make sure I was making the right decision on which cars to get to be financially responsible. So I think this fit the bill.
Well, this is your second or third, how many meetings you been at now, too?
Second.
You're already coming to us wanting the cars, huh?
I know.
That's really something.
And
I guess.
I was originally told the meetings don't last this long either.
And I know where you're driving to, so see if we can speed this up. I move to authorize the purchase of equipment pursuant to section 505.101 of the Ohio Revised Code.
Second.
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes. Thank you. Thanks, Lieutenant. Eric?
First off tonight, we have our 2018 annual road report. We are required by section 4501.04 of the Ohio Revised Code to submit a copy of our road inventory to the Hamilton County Engineer's Office on an annual basis. The report must contain mileage verification along with the condition report of our entire inventory. Last year, we had 120.769 miles of township roadway. Several administrative changes were made by the engineer's office, including Signal Hill Lane being reassigned to a different center line. The mileage decreased by .0113 of a mile. Skytop Lane was moved to a new center line. The mileage was also decreased by .091 miles. And Foxbrook Place was an error in 2016, and that increased the mileage by .0255. In 2017, we also added several new subdivisions. Edinburgh Court, that increased the mileage by .092 of a mile, and Chestnut Ridge Extension Road, and that increased the mileage by .111 of a mile. Thus, the total township mileage was 121.621 miles as of 8/1/19. We're also required to submit our annual bridge inspection report at the same time. I have copies of the bridge report and the road reports if you would like a copy of that. And the motion appears before you for your consideration.
Can I get that to read tonight before I?
Do what?
I'm kidding. I want to read the road report.
I've got it right there if you've got the time. It's about
Kidding.
24 pages long.
I move to certify the 2018 annual road mileage as submitted by the Ohio Department of Transportation and the Hamilton County Engineer's Office as kept on file in the Township Public Works Department and Fiscal Department.
Second.
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Thank you. Next, we have our 2019 Township Road Inventory. In the past, we have hired a highway consulting service to perform a complete township road inventory. This was done for years 2003, 2005, 2008, 2010, 2013, and 2016. We've been fortunate to have the same service performed by the same professional. I think we believe it's valuable to have this consistency and highly subjectional review process. I'm pleased to announce that Camille Kalouche again has agreed to perform the same survey. The inventory is a valuable tool to our yearly funding and correct priority of the streets. This year, Camille has agreed to perform the survey, including curbs and streets, for $14,300. The same fee has been in previous years.
This is the one where he ranks them A through whatever.
Yes, well, they're excellent all the way down to a poor rating.
Well, the residents may want to know that's the way we can focus on the ones that
The
are poor.
the poor to very poor, we
We
put
have
on
a
the next
plan of
paving
attack.
list, yes. And that actually, that percentage has been decreasing since, what was it, Steve, 2008? That has gone down to where it's almost like 5% of our full road inventory is in the very poor to poor rating. So that's,
Of course, that's the street in front of my house, but that's all right.
we've left it that way, yeah.
I move to authorize the township administrator to enter into a contract with Highway Consulting Services to perform a complete township road inventory, including curbs, in an amount not to exceed $14,300 plus a 10% contingency, utilizing funds in the Public Works budget.
Second.
Mr. Pappas?
Yep.
Mrs. Stone?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
And last but not least is our 2019 street rehab program. On February 12th, Public Works Department opened bids for the 2019 street rehab program. Attached, you will find the bid results. The published estimate for the work was $1,125,000. And the recommended bid totals came in at $1,069,357.50. The department reviewed the bids for content and completeness, and established the best and lowest responsive bidder. Based on this analysis, I recommend the award to the project to John R. Jurgensen Company for the amount of $1,069,357.50, and furthermore, a 10% contingency, $106,936 is recommended to cover any unforeseen conditions outside the scope of the original work.
I move that, you're welcome, D. I move that this board hereby accepts the bid of $1,069,357.50 from John R. Jurgensen Company, deemed to be the most responsive and responsible bidder for the 2019 street rehab program in accordance with the bid plans and specifications, together with a 10% contingency for a maximum appropriation of $1,176,293.50 in TIF funds. Further, this board hereby authorizes and directs the township administrator to give timely notice of award to the contractor, and after consultation with the law director, to enter into contract with John R. Jurgensen Company in accordance with their bid for the 2019 street rehab program project.
Second.
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Well, welcome back, Rick.
We have an unusual situation where the Anderson Township paramedics, quote unquote, was bequested a gift of $50,322.12 as a bequest from a pour-over trust. It was from the estate and trust of Margene Blankenship Weiss, who passed away in 2018. When I originally talked to the attorney who called sometime last year, he expressed that it was an appreciation for several runs the paramedics had made on her husband in past years.
Oh.
Unfortunately, when Miss Weiss passed away, she does not have any family or anybody to extend our appreciation for the gift. So there's not much really we can do other than thank her publicly. But we've earmarked the money. It's going to go into the Township Fire and Rescue Fund. And our staff had talked about, earmarking it for a specific project. If it's something we can identify, maybe putting a plaque or something on whatever it is. So that whoever might see it, maybe had an acquaintance with her and, might recall that, and just give her the estate and the thoughtfulness for the gift. So before you is a resolution requesting the acceptance of her very generous donation.
Oh.
That's it.
I move to adopt a resolution accepting donation of $50,322.12 from the Margene Blankenship Weiss Trust pursuant to the authority of Section 50510 of the revised code.
Second.
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
That's all I
No,
have.
that's pretty,
That's very,
That is
that's
actually, I mean,
yeah.
it's beautiful, but it's sad too. I mean, there's no one to thank, there's nobody around.
I think we should do some kind of plaque. I mean, something. Something somewhere.
I'll tell you what, I will work on something, I'll come
You
back
work
to
on
it.
some.
I got an
The tree with the
idea.
plaque, something. You got an idea?
I have an
Okay.
idea,
I want to
we'll
do
work
something.
on that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
thanks,
And
Chief.
I'd like to encourage these kinds of gifts to the township. I think that's awesome.
Very cool. Go ahead.
Okay, administration has one item for the board's consideration tonight. The Ohio Township Association has a group rating program for workers' compensation claims. By pooling with other member organizations, our annual workers' compensation premiums were reduced by an average of 35%. Although there is a cost to joining the pool, the township will ultimately save about $82,000 in premium costs by reducing our workers' compensation costs. There is a motion before you, and I would request your consideration.
I move to authorize payment of $25,722 to CareWorks Comp for Anderson Township's participation in the 2020 Ohio Township Association's group rating program.
Second.
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Thank you. That's all we have this evening.
Thanks, Vicki. Next regularly monthly board meeting in this room will be March 21st, 2019 at 6 o'clock. With that, I move to adjourn the
Do we have
meeting.
this one?
Second.
Isn't there?
What's that?
What is that?
No.
Okay. Never mind.
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all. Thank you all. What diehards. Thanks for staying.
There goes Miss Nappy. She stayed today.